Hello everyone. Today's video is about data ingestion in AWS. So we'll talk briefly about what data ingestion is, what are the different types of data ingestion, their use cases, and then we would talk about 10 most frequently asked questions when we want to do data ingestion. Now, you can look at it as questions or we can look at it as things that we really have to do when we do data ingestion. So it can be the best practices as well as questions. So that's the agenda that I explained. Okay, what is data ingestion? Now, data ingestion we all know is simply getting data from multiple sources into our target so that we can further store and analyze it. Now, there are two types of mechanisms in which we actually do data ingestion. One is push, one is pull. Now, what is a push mechanism? Push mechanism means that there is a data source from where the data source owner is actually pushing the data to a landing zone so that we can pick up. We are not connecting to the source directly, they are pushing it. Second kind is pull, where we are actually making a JDBC connection or a API request and pulling the data. So we are the ones who are initiating the request. Now sometimes people may not prefer this as in the source owners, because when we pull data it is putting some pressure on the source system, consuming some resources. So there may be cases when people would prefer to do a push kind of a mechanism. So that's on the mechanism. Second is type. What are the different types of data ingestion? Data ingestion can be in three ways, either batch or real time or event driven. Now, what is batch data ingestion? Batch data ingestion is where we have a stipulated time when we want to run the data ingestion. Let's say once a day, twice a day, or in a week, in a month, or whatever may be the frequency. We want to pull bulk of data within a stipulated frequency. Real time is something where we are pulling the data. It's like data streaming in. So streaming data use case would actually fall into real time, where we want to pull the data in real time. The architecture for both will be very different. Even the technologies used will be different. So in the upcoming videos, we will go deep into the architecture of real-time ingestion and architecture of batch data ingestion. The third type of category is event-driven, which means that this type of ingestion will occur only when there is an event. So there would be an event that would trigger my ingestion, and the subsequent action would be actually ingesting the data. Let us look at some of the use cases to better understand what is batch, what is event driven, and what is real time. So batch would be typically scheduled jobs, either to do my ETL or ELT. It would be bulk data transfer. So when I'm doing bulk data transfer, when I'm doing historical migrations, those will be batch kind of operations. Or my regular ETL that I run every day, every week. Those are batch and they're running at a particular time. Then what are the real-time use cases? Real-time use case can be something like fraud detection, where somebody is swiping card at a shopping mall or at a shop, and at that very time we need to figure out whether that transaction that is happening is correct or is it a fraudulent transaction. So this kind of a thing is definitely real-time. Then cyber security, where there are video surveillance systems who are doing surveillance, and that video needs to be immediately analyzed to see if there is some activity going on which is not right. So that can be one use case. Then there can be ad optimizations or proximity marketing. Now ad optimization is when we are actually browsing something on the website and somebody needs to figure out the person, let's say we are browsing Amazon website. Now Amazon needs to figure out that what should be given to me as an ad. So maybe you're visiting some website and you would see a number of ads popping up. Now those ads, where should they be placed and what should be the ad? That is an entire analytics in itself, and that depends on my browsing history. Like when I'm going through that website, what all am I clicking? That clickstream analytics would be done to figure out what kind of ad should I be shown. So that's ad optimization. It's in real time. Then there can be proximity marketing. Now these are some of the use cases. There can be many. So proximity marketing, like when I enter a shopping mall or and I'm going on purchasing things based on my GPS location and based on what I am, buying, it will suggest or give me deals, send me SMS of deals saying that these are some things that you may be interested in, giving me some offers. So that these are real-time use cases. Now, what can be the use case for event-driven? Something like I am actually getting media files where I have to do a transcoding of those media files. So I can set an event that as soon as the media files land into my S3 bucket or my landing zone, I need to call a function to transcode them. That can be one use case. Another use case can be if a particular type of file lands in, I need to process it. But this is event triggered because I don't have a schedule, a frequency when the file will come in. As and when the file drops or comes in, I would initiate my processing. So that's event driven. There can be other use cases like you have objects in S3 and you want to sync up in other data stores. So S3 is your landing, but you are subsequently putting the data to some other data sources, and that synchronization is happening through an event. So these are few of the use cases. Now we will move on to the 10 frequently asked questions. And these questions in turn will tell you what are the things that you should keep in mind while you are doing the data ingestion. The first question could be, what should be the file format? So when we ingest our data, we may get data in different formats, maybe CSV, TSV, JSON, XML. But ultimately, when we ingest that data, we have to put it somewhere in a, let's say in a landing zone. At that point of time, what should be our storage format? So preferably, it is good to have columnar file formats like Parquet, ORC. The reason being the compression ratio that these columnar formats offer is very good. So in turn, it saves your storage space, as well as it is very easy to do a predicate push down at column level, because if your queries have a do a predicate push down, then they will be faster. So it is preferable to have your files stored in a columnar format. Then what are the other ways to optimize? If there are, let's say, files which are very, very big, then what should be done? How can we optimize that loading of the file? Typically in AWS, whenever we are bringing in data from multiple places, most of the time the landing area would be S3. Even if we observe data lake use cases, we would observe that even the multiple layers that we create, whether it is raw, aggregated, etc., are in S3. So one way to accelerate this loading to S3 is using multi-part upload. So if our file size is greater than 100 MB, we should definitely use multi-part upload. Or there is a feature called S3 transfer acceleration. This is typically used for content distribution networks. When you have data coming in from different geographical locations, at that time S3 transfer acceleration should be used in conjunction with CDM. Then another question can be, how do I ensure that I ingest data only once? Now, the way to do it is archival and deduplication. When I say archival, what it means? Let's say you have file sources and RDBMS sources. You are bringing in data to S3. Now, once you bring the data to S3 and you do your entire ETL or processing, and the processing is successful, those files should actually be moved to a separate bucket and archived. Why? Because then we know that we are not going to reprocess them. So that is one way of doing it. And we will keep on. So typically we create date partitions when we bring in data every day. So once the files are processed, we move the entire date partition to archive, and next day there will be a new date partition. And another way to do it is we also have to handle deduplication in our processing logic, so that even if by mistake there is a data that comes in twice or thrice, we can identify it as a duplicate. Even in case of streaming data, when there can be mistakes like the producer producing the data multiple times, etc. So in both the cases, whether it is batch or streaming, we should handle deduplication in our code. What should I partition my data on? How should I partition my data? So there are multiple ways to partition. Typically, partitioning is good because it gives us a better performance. How do we decide on the partition key? That really depends on how we are going to access the data. But for the landing layer, the initial layer, when we are ingesting data, we would typically partition it based on either domain or source system, and within that we would partition it based on date. So year, month and day. That is how it should be partitioned. If we are doing ingestion multiple times a day, then the partition can be extended to hour also. So it can be domain, source system, our year, month, date and hour. That's how it should be partitioned, so that it is clearly distinguishable that which data came on which day. Another important question can be, how do I catalog the incoming data? So there are two ways. Either we write a custom built program using Lambda, which means that whenever data comes in to a landing zone S3, there is a Lambda trigger. Lambda is a serverless execution of your code, and it just triggers an event. So S3 can trigger an event as soon as the file lands. Lambda function can be called, which actually does this extraction of metadata and puts it into DynamoDB. And we can also have Elasticsearch to search on that metadata. So this is a purely custom built solution. Another way can be using AWS Glue. So Glue has a feature called Glue Crawlers, which can crawl your entire S3 and gather the metadata. So that's how cataloging can be done. Now, how should I secure my data at rest? Security is another important aspect. We saw that in our architecture video. So security here, I'm talking about authentication and authorization. So there are 4 different ways to do that, to secure our data at rest. How to do that? One is IAM policies. IAM is nothing but a service called Identity Access Management. Identity Access Management can allow us to create users and to apply policies to them. That is one way. Other way is to have bucket policies. We can have policies at the S3 bucket level. So anything residing in that bucket, we can control using these policies. Third type is access control list. Now this is used for finer grain access. If we want to give it at bucket level or for objects within the bucket, we can use ACLs. And last is query string authentication. So this is when we want to give a temporary access for some period of time. We can create a query and give it to users for a stipulated time, and they would have access for only that time. Now, how should I encrypt my data? I have authenticated, authorized. I also want to encrypt. So there are different ways to encrypt, like SSE S3, that is server-side encryption, which is managed by S3. So the key for encryption would be managed by S3. There can be a server-side encryption, which is client managed. So the key can be given by the client. The third type is server-side encryption managed by KMS. KMS is a key management service given by Amazon. So the keys can be managed by the KMS. So these are the 3 ways in which we can encrypt our data. Now, once we have brought in the data, we have consumed it for processing, we don't want our data to keep lying in S3 because it will incur as cost. So how can I archive my data? There are different ways to archive. First of all, there are 2 options of archival. One is Glacier and one is S3 Glacier Deep Archive. The difference between the two is in cost, of course, and the time to retrieval. So Glacier and Deep Archive both are meant for archival, but if we have to retrieve infrequently used data that has gone into Glacier, it will take 3 to 5 hours, and from Deep Archive it will take 12 hours. So that's the difference. Now we can put the data into these two by using either life cycle rules, where I say that after these many days the data should go to Glacier, then it should go to Glacier Deep Archive. Or another way is intelligent tiering. Intelligent tiering is an option that we can select, and what is happening in the background is AWS will manage that when the data should go to archive, when it should go to deep archive. It's an AI enabled service. It keeps a track of how frequently the data is getting used, and based on that it keeps on moving the data to different layers. Like there are different storage classes in S3. How can I make my objects immutable? Now this is sometimes very much required because there are retention policies, there are legal obligations. We do not want our objects to get deleted by accident also. So then what we follow is a worm model, which is write once, read many times. We do not want that to get deleted or overwritten. So what we do is we make the objects immutable. So there is a concept called S3 object lock that can be enabled and used, so that and it has a retention period associated with it. So for that much period, the object cannot be deleted. Okay, now the last question is, what technology should we use? And this is very frequently asked. So technologies would depend on the type of my use case, whether it is batch or real time. So, but there are a lot of technologies available, open source as well as AWS managed technologies. So open source like Spark, NiFi, Kafka, Kinesis, Scoop, all of these can be used. So Spark streaming can be used for real-time streaming. Kafka can be used for real-time streaming. Kinesis can be used. Scoop can be used to connect to database. If my source system is RDBMS, I can use Scoop. I can also use REST APIs. Certain applications will expose REST APIs for me to pull data. So that can be used. Otherwise, there are services provided by AWS also which can be used for data ingestion, like AWS Glue, data migration service. We spoke about DMS in the migration video. DMS can be used, or data sync can be used if you want to copy data from on-prem to cloud. So there are different mechanisms and technologies to use when we want to ingest data. Now this video was all about what data ingestion is, the types, the mechanism, and some of the very frequently asked questions. So that's for data ingestion. We'll see you next time. Thank you.